Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Bolling, along with Kat Timpf and Lisa Boothe, who is filling in for Ebony K. Williams today. We are the Fox News specialists. Well, some big developments on the terror and national security front today. President Trump ordering the Justice Department to go after information leaks by U.S. officials on the Manchester suicide bombing. The leaks causing U.K. officials to shut down intelligence sharing with the U.S. over the attack, fearing they jeopardize the race to hunt down a network of bombing co-conspirators, with at least men now in custody and more raids underway. Very quickly, we'll talk to you, Kat. We learned today the family of the Manchester bomber may have had substantial terror ties. Father Ramadan was allegedly affiliated with a group that was also affiliated with al-Qaeda at one point. Ismail and Hassan, the brothers, planned to bomb a venue in Libya, and Salman himself had paramilitary training in Syria. I got to tell you, if this has been going on for this many years, why wasn't he in custody, right?
There's bad communication, and thankfully with NATO, they're agreeing to try to improve their intelligence a little bit. So that's some good news coming out of Trump's discussion with NATO today. But this is a huge operation, and it obviously is a very bad thing that the UK no longer feels comfortable sharing more information that they're learning with us because of these leaks.
Yeah, a couple of leaks. Also, Lisa, if you think President Trump is being too tough on terror and too tough on immigration, and then you look overseas and you see what's going on over there, maybe you think twice about that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we should think twice about it. But regarding the leaks, of course, it's a big problem. This is something that the DNI director, Dan Coates, testified this week. It puts lives in jeopardy, puts lives at risk. And when you have an opportunity right now where President Trump is overseas trying to regain the trust of allies like Saudi Arabia and these Gulf states, as well as Israel, it hurts him to have these sort of leaks, because it hurts those relationships with other foreign leaders, as we're seeing with Britain saying that they are no longer going to share some of this intelligence regarding the Manchester bombing. You
know, it seemed at first, and we're going to get to the specialists in 1 second, but it seemed at first, Kat, that the leaks were meant to hurt Trump, and now it feels like they're starting to really affect national security.
Absolutely, and that's why I have to wonder, what is the relationship with these leaks with the other leaks, which were completely about Trump and Russia? Is it the same people or is it different people? Because if it's all the same people, maybe the narrative of it was just to bring about, or excuse me, to bring down Trump, maybe that doesn't really work anymore. And also, these leaks, the information was correct. So do we need to take the other ones more seriously or not? We don't know until we know it's the same people or not.
Well, let's meet today's specialist. He's a former Navy SEAL who completed over 400 missions. He's author of the best-selling book called The Operator, and he's the man who killed the most wanted terrorist, Osama bin Laden. Yes, he specializes in killing terrorists. Badass. Rob O'Neill is here, and she got her start on MTV's Real World. She's married to Wisconsin Republican Congressman Sean Duffy, who she met on the set of Real World. And she's a Fox News contributor, but she specializes in kids. She's a mother of 8 children. Rachel Campos-Duffy is here.
But both heroes in their own right.
Both heroes fighting different types of terror, I'm sure. But Rob, I'm going to go to you first. Lots to unpack today. Clearly, terror, top of the top story, top of the list. The man who shot, you were the man who shot Osama bin Laden, but did you hear over the weekend? Let's take a soundbite and listen to the son, what allegedly is now going to be the son of Osama bin Laden, heading up the al-Qaeda network. Listen.
Documents recovered from bin Laden's hideout in Pakistan reveal a mysterious and menacing new figure in al-Qaeda. He's youthful, angry, and is Osama's son. Now believed to be about 28. Intelligence analysts are paying close attention to his recorded messages.
He's basically saying America and American people, we're coming.
All right, Rob, another bin Laden, more al-Qaeda.
There's several bin Ladens out there, and we found a lot of intel on the bin Laden raid about Hamza bin Laden, who was his son. What's interesting is they were talking about whether or not he should be part of the leadership back in 2010, so a year before the raid. Osama bin Laden actually encouraged him not to be a part of it, to be successful, don't be a part of a jihad. The last thing Osama wanted was for Hamza to die in a drone strike, and they actually hit him in Iran, of all places. Strange bedfellows, but they were in Iran. He decided himself he wanted to be a part of it. He's got the brand. He's got the ideology.
Just so our audience understands, and I really don't even understand this as well, tell us about al-Qaeda. Is it shrinking, or is it now back on the mend?
Well, it's the way that I constantly describe al-Qaeda is like trying to nail Jell-O to a wall. We always underestimate what they're doing, and we don't understand how deep their bench is. They've got a lot of people. They're always grooming new people, just like Hamza. Like I mentioned, since 2010, they're trying to get him. He wanted to be a leader. They brought him with senior leaders to Iran. They trained him up on it. He's got everything that they need. We are underestimating them. Same ideology as ISIS. They're the Wahhabis. They're based out of stuff in that version out of Saudi Arabia. But what ISIS does is they want the tax with someone blowing someone up there, stay in your home country and blow things up. Al Qaeda knows like not to attack Turkey because that's the way in, and they want the big hit. Right. And we can't forget about them.
Let me bring Rachel. Rachel, we were touching on this at the top of the show, though. These leaks are very, very damaging to national security, right. And we keep seeing it, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And now countries are saying, or cities, Manchester says, we can't share with you right now because we're worried about your leaks.
Right, Kat's absolutely right. It's gone beyond, this is hurting Donald Trump. This is hurting America. This is hurting our international and national security. And what I'm waiting to see is, where are the Democrats? Where are they leading? And where's their charge for getting these leakers? Because they seemed really concerned about it when it was Podesta's email. And now we have national security, people's lives at stake, not just political gossip that might bring down somebody who's going to go down anyway. So I think we need to see leadership, not just from the White House that they need to get this, but we also need to see Congress putting pressure to get these people. This is a treasonous act.
Well, what about it, Lisa? Are the leaks coming from the intel departments?
I don't know, but obviously it's a problem. As I mentioned at the top of the show, and as Rachel just eloquently mentioned, it's hurting our relationships with other countries. And I think at a time where we just saw what happened in Manchester, now is the time to have these trusting relationships with other countries for intelligence sharing purposes. So this isn't just hurting the Trump administration, which I think is the goal of the individuals who are sharing this information with reporters who are more than happy to carry that and report it. But it's also hurting our country at a really critical juncture where we are facing these threats with Al Qaeda. We're facing these threats with ISIS and other terror-minded groups.
Mm-hmm. Your thoughts, Kat, on what do you do? What do you do when you're President Trump and he's worried about leaks coming out of the White House? He's worried about leaks coming from the intel department. Look, there are a lot of people who don't like Donald Trump, but when you start leaking information that's affecting terror and our national security, a whole new ballgame.
Absolutely a whole new ballgame. They can't share this information with us. President Trump has every right to be upset about it, but everybody should be upset about it. Absolutely everybody should. I don't know who these people are. I don't know if they hate Trump so much that they hate him more than they love the country, or if maybe they just have never had anyone pay attention to them in their lives and they want to see something in the newspaper and be like, I did that, and they just don't care if it hurts the country. But we need to look into these leaks, and I'm really curious to see if these are the same people or the same group as the earlier leaks with mostly centered around Russia, and what would that say about those leaks if it was the same group of people?
So this all dovetails into the next part of this segment, which is Trump is trying to keep the country safe. He's trying to do what he thinks is in best interest of keeping national security in check and keeping terrorism away from our shores, out of our country. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals today making President Trump's ability to keep America safe that much harder today. In a 10-3 ruling, the court upheld a nationwide block on its travel ban, temporary moratorium actually, which targeted 6 terror-plagued countries. The case may now be headed for the Supreme Court. Let's talk about that for a second. Trump wants to keep things. I'm sorry. We'll bring it around. Let's start with Rob. Sure. Your thoughts on this temporary moratorium on these 6 people from these 6 countries coming to America?
With the people coming to America, the problem right now with the leaks and everything like that is that we're seeing partisan politics at its worst. And President Trump proved that with alliance solidarity going to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia first, that it's not a Muslim ban. Muslim ban is brought up by people who want President Trump to fail. We need help from them to bring people in. The countries that we're not letting people come from, yes, they're primary Muslim, but there's no embassies there. There is no way to vet people to come in. And the enemy has said to us, and they're not dumb people, they've said to us before, they will use our immigration system, they will use our welfare system until they have enough soldiers in the streets of America to bring blood to the streets. They've said it, they're not lying to us. This is
immigration and refugee system.
And not to mention, the last time President Obama went to Saudi Arabia, the king did not even meet him at the airport. That's how badly strained that relationship was. But look, all of this has been way overblown. We're literally talking about a very temporary pause from countries that were identified by the Obama administration and Congress for, travel restrictions. And the idea that this is somehow, a Muslim ban is asinine, considering the fact that the 3 biggest Muslim populations are not even included in this temporary pause. So, I mean, the entire thing has gone so over-sensationalized by the president's critics.
I think that the possible good or help that this could do in stopping attacks is what's overblown. Personally, there's not a single attack, a fatal attack since 9/11 in this country that this ban would have prevented. There not a single instance. And if you look, there are so many other threats. What are we going to do? Belgium, they have all these terror cells there. We're going to ban people from Belgium. If you start there, where does it end up? We need to look at homegrown terrorism. We already have great communication. Go ahead.
Do you not think the world is becoming a more and more dangerous place as time goes?
I'm certain that it is, but so it's these countries and why these countries
further measures to make sure that danger, as we see, it's exponentially growing in Europe. We make sure it doesn't happen.
Well, we're very, very different from Europe. We have much better communication with different intelligence agencies, and also Muslim immigrants integrate way better into our society than they do in Europe.
But I would just say this. I mean, Rod brings up such a great point. I mean, we're talking about countries where there's no embassy. There's no way to vet who these people are. I turned on the another network before I got on just to kind of get the temperature of what was being said out there. Sorry about that, fans out there. But they seemed gleeful about what they saw, this stop on the ban. And I just thought, God, they're so out of touch. People are seeing what's happening in Europe and the terrorist attacks, and they are on the side of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has the pulse on what common sense people want.
I'm sorry, Lisa, 1 second. Rob, ISIS has said themselves they will infiltrate our the United States refugee program. They want to put fighters into
from Guantanamo Bay. They're telling us that's the plan. But Kat made a very good point. How Muslims come here and they assimilate into society, which is very, very true. And that's how we're going to win. We're not going to win this by banning people and bombing people. But we need, it's not the weapon. It's not the gun or the truck or the bomb. It's the ideology. We need help from the Muslims who sometimes are too afraid of the other radical Muslims.
The man who took down bin Laden think it's okay to increase refugee immigration into the country and to put a block on this travel ban?
We're a great country because we bring migrants come in. We're the melting pot. But they need to come here first, respect the Constitution.
But Rob, the problem is that right now we don't have a melting pot. We have a society that favors the salad bowl, the multicultural thing. We lost the ability to assimilate people the way we used to in past generations, and that's got to be something we address in addition to the security measures.
People assimilate pretty well here. It's nothing like Europe with the terror cell issue. That's just a fact.
But we are falling into that, and let's be honest.
How are we falling into it? Has there been a terror attack recently?
Do your kids go to school? If you have kids, well,
I do not have kids. I have a cat. If your cat went to school, your cat would learn that they do not teach assimilation. They teach multiculturalism in our schools, and it's always blame America first. Very few kids are learning their Constitution. Very few people are learning. I write all the time about college campus things, and I agree with you. But I'm saying if you look at the end result of where these people are ending up, they're actually integrating very well into our society. Nothing like what's going on.
Sessions said 300. There were. I think he had mentioned at the time that there were 300 refugees that they were looking into for suspected terrorism, right? And we're also, again, talking about countries that are all either safe harbors of terrorism or are state sponsors of terrorism.
Yeah, don't let them in. Don't let terrorists in. Vet them and don't let them in.
We need to go. President Trump making a splash at his first NATO summit in Brussels and already scoring a big foreign policy victory for America. About time. Don't go away.
President Trump coming out swinging at his first NATO summit in Brussels. The president, of course, has been a long-running critic of the alliance, and he did not mince words today.
I have been very, very direct with Secretary Stoltenberg and members of the alliance in saying that NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations. If NATO countries made their full and complete contributions, then NATO would be even stronger than it is today, especially from the threat of terrorism.
And amid the tough talk, President Trump also scoring a win with NATO agreeing to beef up counterterrorism measures and expand its security role as he's been demanding, which is definitely a win, definitely a good thing. In terms of money, though, I don't know if I see them paying more because we pay so much And let's be honest, especially with this administration, we're never going to cut the defense budget. So why would they pay more?
So this is what he's, and this is really honestly, it's a common mistake that a lot of people make. The way President Trump isn't asking anyone to pay more money to NATO. President Trump is saying that if you want to be in NATO, part of the agreement, the non-binding treaty agreement, it says that you have to spend only 2% of your own GDP on your own defense. You don't have to give it to NATO.
I understand that.
But my point is, 23 out of the 28 nations aren't even doing that to protect themselves. And that really is a misnomer. So you hear it on the left saying, oh, President Trump wants everyone to spend more money on NATO defense. And not. We're already one country, us, are responsible for 22% of the NATO budget. We're already doing everyone else, our fair share and everyone else's. We're just demanding that. If you're going to be part of NATO, you be able to defend yourself, because in the event that we have to go to war for you because you picked a fight with someone else, you better be able to at least start to defend yourself, and everyone else has to pitch in too.
Eric, can I just say, I watched that speech. I watched all those European leaders squirming. It was delicious to watch. I'm going to tell you, that was not a speech. That was a campaign commercial for Trump. This is what people wanted him to do. And I just want to quote this, because this is what NATO says that their pledges. They quote, they commit to, quote, aim to move towards paying. I mean, this is... I aim to move towards. What could be more European? That means nothing. That means they have no intention of paying this. And it's embarrassing to them, right in the midst of a huge terror attack where he's calling for NATO, for them to help do their fair share on NATO, to use NATO as counter-terrorism. And I think it's embarrassing for them, and they look weak, really weak next to Trump.
I completely agree, Lisa, with the fact that we're paying, our budget's so huge and they're not paying their fair share. But is the tough talk going to be enough, especially when we're trying to hike our defense budget again?
I think he's doing more than what President Obama was able to accomplish, in the sense of, what were the two things that President Trump talked on the campaign trail regarding NATO, besides saying it was obsolete? But he said that they should focus more on terrorism, which we heard that there's this new counterterrorism effort that NATO is going to be working on. And he also said that they should be paying more of their fair share, which is what we've been talking about. You see someone like Merkel, who has committed to Germany paying more. And there was also a McClatchy article talking about how these NATO countries are putting together, I guess, outlines and how they're going to try to meet these efforts and meet the commitments, because, as Eric had pointed out, 23 countries aren't. 23 of these NATO allies.
Right, well, they technically have until 2024 to meet the limit.
It's also a win for the president, because what this demonstrates that he's able to coordinate these nations to support U.S.-led efforts. And I think that's something he's been able to demonstrate throughout this trip.
You bring up Merkel, and during President Trump's speech, when he's demanding them pay their...
funny.
No, he's looking around, and they cut to the camera, and Merkel kind of leans over and looks over at Macron, who's the new French president, and neither one of them are paying their own 2%. They're going, uh-oh. I'm curious to find out where she promised.
Can you imagine being in I mean, you're basically just being called out. So I mean, it's probably.
Well, okay. I want to get Rob in here. And even if they did start paying more, we're not going to start spending less. We're never going to cut our defense budget.
They're saying let's have you pay more, and it strikes me as odd, because they love to be collectivists. This is called collective defense. Article 5 of the Washington Treaty. They said it's pay 2% of your GDP. Now look at who's paying. Okay, we're paying it. The UK's paying it. Okay, Greece is paying it. I'm not sure their GDP is knocking it out of the park. Estonia, and then Poland, because they know what happens when you don't. Everyone else, France and Germany, are kind of laughing at it. 2%.
Brussels, the head of NATO.
This is why Rob needs to be
brand new building is in Brussels, and they're not even meeting their 2% commitment.
But that's the problem with collectivism. There's always freeloaders. I didn't just look at the presidents or the leaders that were there at that speech. I'm thinking about the parents at our homes, the mother and fathers whose safety depends of their children depends on NATO and on this security. And I just think, Europe has to care more about their children's safety than we do.
But here's honestly the point. The United States is NATO. Let's be honest. If any of these other countries go to war and we have to defend them, where is the vast majority of those military assets going?
Montenegro.
Right. Montenegro goes to war with Russia. Guess where those assets are coming? They're coming out of our pockets.
But it's the whole thing that everybody hates the sheepdog until the wolf shows up. They don't believe in the wolf, and then they need it. That's what I've heard anyway.
Boom goes the dynamite.
All right. When we come back, it's time to wake up, America. Eric Bolling is all fired up about the Montana body slamming drama around candidate Greg Giaforte. Don't miss it.
Leads to another, you slide up close to me, tear a t-shirt each other. Your hands all over me.
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialists. It's time to wake up America. Yesterday, on the eve of a special election for Montana's sole congressional seat, the frontrunner Republican candidate Greg Gianforte did this.
Speak with Shane, please. But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the Guardian?
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Well, let's start with it's not okay to put your hands on a journalist. It's not okay even if this journalist is being really unbearingly annoying, which he probably was. Make no mistake, I'm not condoning Gianforte's actions, but what's also not okay is the liberal media rushing immediately to their predictable conclusion, it's Trump's fault. Within minutes of that audio tape's release, the mainstream media were ranting away at how somehow Trump was responsible. Listen to this.
It's about creating an atmosphere, consciously stoking those fires of fear and anger and resentment. And this isn't subtle. This is the President of the United States calling the press the, quote, enemy of the American people.
This is not a big leap from what the head of the Republican Party is saying every day and what happened last night in Montana.
Reporters, they're the fake people back there. They're horrible people. They're the enemy of the American people. If you think that doesn't have anything to do with it, then you are sadly mistaken, my friend.
Come on, guys. You know better than to blame Trump for something some loose cannon in Montana did. Joe and Don, you're good friends of mine for a long time. You can't honestly think Trump's at fault here, can you? The man was 5,000 miles away in Europe. You're better than that. Besides being a bit overzealous anti-Trump rhetoric, you guys are leaders in the eyes of many liberal journalists. They take their cues from you and blow it up 100 times worse. Being against Trump in the New York Times newsroom is a badge of honor. So anything they can blame on Trump, they will, and they do. And over at the Washington Post, the story doesn't even need to be vetted before they post anti-Trump news, real or fake. The hypocrisy in the mainstream media is extraordinary. Did they blame Obama when Bo Bergdahl defected by walking away from his base in Afghanistan? Or for the 6 soldiers who may have died while looking for Bergdahl? Did they blame Bill Clinton for the, let's just say, indiscreet activity that took place during his years in office? No, they didn't. So stop treating Trump differently. He's the commander-in-chief. Respect the man, or at the very least, muster up the character to respect the office. Now is a good time to start. Let's start with you, Mr. O'Neill over there in the corner. You happen to know a little thing or two about Montana.
Yeah, I'm from Montana, Butte, Montana, right where this happened. I'm familiar with the race. It wasn't making any headlines at all because President Trump won Montana by, I think, plus 20 points. And this, the guy he's running against is all about the environment and all this stuff. All of a sudden, what happened there in Montana, apparently the snowflake reporter invaded Gianforte's safe space. And we have a saying up there, you mess around, you might not be around. And I'm not saying, I have a history with these guys. When the bin Laden story came out, these guys kind of bum rushed my father, and they got him to say some stuff he didn't know, on the record, off the record.
The Guardian.
I believe it was the Guardian, if I'm wrong. Same tactics. It's the same ambush tactics. And granted, I'm not condoning the body slam. I think it's kind of funny based on my history. But you try to mess with it sometimes. You'll get the bull's horns in Montana.
Right. So somehow this became Trump's fault.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? As you said, he's 5,000 miles away. But also, I think we need to step back. I'm also the wife of a politician. I know how the tactics that the left uses on these members. My kids have been followed. We had a congressman just the other day get run off the road by an overzealous town hall person. So I think that they're on edge as well. I mean, and this guy was not a reporter looking for a fair story. He was obviously doing a takedown on him. And so this guy's got his back up. He got a little bit of Montana justice.
Well, and I've dealt with aggressive reporters on the campaign trail. I can recall one who literally blocked the candidate that I was working for's door so that he could not go anywhere and I could not get to him, which is very aggressive. But I just think it's laughable for the left to try to blame President Trump on this, because look at where have they been when Debbie Wasserman Schultz essentially threatened the chief of Capitol Police the other day. Where have they been, as you mentioned, when someone tried to run a Republican congressman off the road because of health care. Another guy pushed a member of Congress in North Dakota. Martha McSally has received death threats. Where has the left been there? Betsy DeVos was literally blocked from entering a public school building. On Inauguration Day, a car was blown up, basically set on fire. Buildings were broken into. Where was the left then?
You're suggesting it's because Gianforte is a Republican, and not because
I'm saying that this is all politically motivated by the left, because it's the night before a special election.
Okay.
They want to win the race, so they're going to gin this up the most they can, and of course the media is going to do their bidding.
You don't have to gin it up very much when a guy before the election beats up a reporter in front of other reporters. Everyone's going to want to talk about that because it's like, are you serious, bro? Are you serious right now? But what if he doesn't win because of this? Maybe he'll win because of this. Maybe you'll know something about this reality TV show. Everyone's going to watch a reality TV show with the dude who punched out the reporter.
I've been talking to friends of mine.
He called like crazy.
Yeah, what does Rob know?
$100,000. I've been talking to people in Montana since this happened, and there are Republicans changing sides because this happened. There are actually Democrats changing sides because it happened. It's going to be
It's going to be a wash.
Oh, it totally is. Because
but can we point out that 70% of the ballots have been sent and have been pre-mailed prior to the incident?
So it's like slacking off in the last semester.
You're going to be in a situation, Kat, where Gianforte will probably win. And then what do you do in Congress? What do you do in the halls of Congress when a guy who's literally been arrested for assault is your member being sent to Congress?
You put reality TV cameras on him. That's what you do.
He just raised
MTV should be all over
the incident $100,000.
But I also think there's a police investigation, so let's sort of wait, see what happens with this. Obviously, the voters are going to have their say, but you guys remember the Corey Lewandowski thing? It blew up, and then you watch the video. It wasn't the story that was originally being told.
No,
so I just let's see what happens with all this. Obviously, you do not body slam someone.
We know what happened.
If you don't agree with them, that is wrong.
We had a Fox crew, a reporter, and camera crew who witnessed the whole thing. I'm laughing because I'm not condoning.
No, it's not.
I think the guy was wrong. I think that Republican
I have three brothers, so this is how they resolve their differences with me.
My whole issue and that whole monologue was about, you can't blame Trump for this. Quick thought.
Well, no, absolutely not. I think that Gianforte needs to hire better security because that guy shouldn't get that close.
That's a good point.
That's a great
Very good point. All right, let's leave it right there. A stunning new poll reveals what Americans really think about the mainstream media. Fake news. We're coming right back.
Got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got the string around my finger. What a world, what a life. I'm in love.
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialist. I'm Lisa Boothe, in for Ebony K. Williams. Our specialists today are Rob O'Neill and Rachel Campos-Duffy. Let's continue the conversation. According to a new poll from Harvard University, 65% of American voters think that there is a lot of fake news in the mainstream media. That includes 80% of Republicans, 60% of independents, and 53% of Democrats. But 35% of voters overall do not agree. Rachel, what do you think of this survey?
Well, I think it's probably pretty accurate. I mean, I can tell you where I live. People are very savvy. And I think overall, we can look at the last election. The media was absolutely 100% in the tank for Hillary Clinton, and Trump still won. And they don't just have the left doesn't just have the mainstream media. They also have powerful pop culture. We saw even last week, Jimmy Kimmel had to apologize for humanizing Trump, which is a really weird thing. So I think that American people are smart. They get it. And they don't see this as just an attack on Donald Trump. They see it as an attack on them. They voted. They don't believe in do-overs at election. They see that the left, the media, the never-Trumpers and the deep state are trying to undo their election, and they're mad about it. And I can tell you, I live in Middle America. It's not working on them. It's actually having the opposite effect.
Let me jump in real quick, though. They don't see it as an attack on Donald Trump because the same survey found that 60% of Americans or voters think that Donald Trump is unfair to the media. And only 48% thought that the media was unfair of Donald Trump. So I'm not saying that there's no distrust of the media. Obviously there is. But I think we're in a time where we've been lied to so many times by so many different institutions that nobody trusts anybody anymore. That's a bad thing, but independent thinking is always good. We could have more of that in the world.
I'll tell you what.
The poll said otherwise. The same poll said 60% think that Trump is not being fair to the media.
Last week was very, very damaging to the mainstream media. We had New York Times come out with a story on one day, and Washington Post first day, New York Times the second day. The Washington Post story was that Donald Trump turned over classified information to Lavrov and Kislyak in the meeting. The information happened to be commonly known information, and by the way, he's allowed to declassify information. That was a blow to the Washington Post. You know, their freedom or the republic dies in the dark. Well, guess what? They brought fake news. The very next day, the New York Times had another story that they basically did the same thing. So when the paper of record and the Washington Post, two publications that people really rely on to have real news and real research news and journalistic standards, blew it last week badly.
Well, and regarding that, in this survey as well, it was 74% of Americans believe that the leaks are a serious matter, and even 84% of Democrats as well. So it looks like everyone's on board on that issue. But I want to get you in here because you're not in the political system. So what's your take on sort of this dynamic between the president, the media, and the way that the media is covering the president?
I think somewhere along the way we've lost the importance of honesty over fairness. I mean, Kat made a good point. Who's being fair with whom?
Is fairness a thing?
But see, you need to be honest.
Sadly.
I talked to a lot of my friends who are still in the military, still in the intelligence department, and they just can't believe the fake news that came out about former Director Comey. One day he's the hero because he did this, because he didn't charge someone with something. The next day he's bad because he did this, and then it's like they're just reporting on what they want, and it's all a part of political correctness and politics, both the same thing. It's like it's who's going to get the better story, what's going to push my personal agenda, and somewhere way back here is honesty and the greater good of the country.
One of the biggest damaging things that's going on right now in the mainstream media is they're leaking all these stories, they're printing all these stories on the basis of anonymous sources. They'll have 2 and 3 and 4 anonymous sources, and they won't say who it is. And then we find out days later that, well, that wasn't really exactly what was happening, and so they're undermining their own credibility. Yeah, if you have a source, name your source, or don't run with it.
But the other person that undermined their credibility was Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump very early on was the first and strongest candidate we've ever seen to call them out when they were unfair, when they were doing things that were not honest, and when there was fake news. And so I think what we're going to see here is that, you know, they've put all their eggs in this Russia basket, Eric. When this turns out to not be something, they're going to further erode their credibility. And by the way, they're also focusing so much on Russia on the left that they're never going to figure out why they lost Wisconsin.
I think that's true. I think that's true for the people that support Trump. I think that's maybe the reason why a lot of people support Trump. But there are a lot of people who say, hey, yeah, maybe the media is biased, but they still, it's the slant that they agree with, so they still do trust it and they still do listen to it. And the Russia thing, we still don't know yet what's actually going to happen. We still don't know if something's going to happen or not.
Newspapers are used in bird cages.
We can carry this conversation during the break, so we've got to go. And up next, Dr. Ben Carson calls poverty a state of mind, and the left is absolutely losing it. Stay tuned.
Dr. Ben Carson, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, sparking all kinds of outrage on the left for saying this about poverty during an interview.
I think poverty, to a large extent, is also a state of mind. You take somebody who has the right mindset, you can take everything from them and put them on the street, and I guarantee you, in a little while, they'll be right back up there. And you take somebody with the wrong mindset, you can give them everything in the world. They'll work their way back down to the bottom.
Not a message of self-improvement and personal responsibility. How dare he, right? No, okay, Ben Carson has a way of speaking in a way where maybe it didn't sound as sensitive or could have or should have, but it's clear what he meant. Obviously, there's people in circumstances they can't get out of and are tough, but attitude does have a lot to do with it. I don't think that if you say you can, then you can, because sometimes you say you can and you don't. But if you say you can't, you can't. That's true, because then you're not even going to try. You accept being a victim. It's disgusting, and it's about time someone said something about it. What do you think?
I don't disagree at all. And look, I think for Dr. Ben Carson, this is a guy who has lived this, right? So for people that are being critical of what he said, this is someone who has experienced this firsthand, who overcame poverty to become a renowned neurosurgeon and then also a presidential candidate. So, I mean, I think this is someone who is a credible voice to lend here. And so for those critics, you know, if you haven't lived it, shut up, maybe.
Can we just point out that Dr. Ben Carson started out in Detroit. He was born to an Army vet father and a Baptist minister mother. He did. He came up from the bottom. He worked his way up. And I think we all know, I love Dr. Ben Carson. I love that
I do
man.
too.
But of course, the left twists it. And what his message was, you have the right attitude, America gives you ample opportunity to succeed, and he's living embodiment of that.
Also, he said also. He didn't say that's the only thing. He said also, obviously a good attitude helps.
Absolutely. His mother had a third-grade education. He's now, you know, a famous neurosurgeon. Now he's a secretary of HUD. This is a message of empowerment. And he said the main message that his mom gave him, his mom with a third-grade education, said, you are not a victim. And I love that message because what the left wants, and by the way, the Congressional Black Caucus is full of people whose careers are made by telling people that they are victims. This is a different message. This is about empowerment. This is about telling people we're not going to make you comfortable in your poverty. We're going to, as government, provide ladders of opportunity for you to rise out of poverty. I'm passionate about this because this is my family story. And I'm sitting here today because there's an American dream. And what they want to tell you is the dream is not alive. The dream is dead, because if the dream is dead and you can't lift yourself up, guess what? You need
government. You need that.
Rob, what do you think, Rob? You going to agree or you going to call him a jerk?
I agree. I don't know what it's like to grow up in poverty like that, but I was a white guy from Montana who couldn't swim. And I became a Navy SEAL and ended up in bin Laden's bedroom. Just proving that it doesn't matter what you look like.
For the right reason.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you look like. If you work hard and stay positive, never quit, you can do anything you want. And we proved that. And like one of the mottos I had that I was told by an instructor was, when you feel like quitting, which you will, don't quit now. Quit tomorrow.
Yeah, hey man, you couldn't swim, but you had damn good aim.
Absolutely. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, but if they would have sent me after bin Laden with a 5-iron, I probably would have missed.
Absolutely.
This sort of
we got to get to the next one real quick. So you do remember those hordes of Middlebury College kids who shut down a conservative writer from speaking in March? The college is now taking brutal disciplinary action against these 67 students for causing the chaos. Just kidding. They're all getting slaps on the wrist. Most are getting probation. Another handful are getting a mean note on their permanent records. That'll show them, right?
My kids get worse punishments when I put them on timeout for 5 minutes. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. They grabbed a woman by the hair, pulled her back. She ended up in the hospital with them. I mean, they really have a problem on these campuses, and look for Congress and federal government to start to take back the funds, the federal funds, for those who deny students their right to hear different points of view.
Yeah, people were getting physically violent. They're saying we don't know if these were students or not students, or they couldn't identify them. If people are getting that hurt and can't move around, you kind of try a little harder, I think.
Yeah, and they're going to get away with it.
Yes,
because if you look at these college campuses, who's in charge? It's liberals. It's liberals from the administration point of view, the professors as well. So they condone this behavior because they don't agree with the speech of the guests, the conservatives that are going on campus, who are being shut down. So that's the problem here. Unfortunately, there are groups out there trying to make changes. There's websites like professorwatchlist.org that specifically, exploits and targets these professors that, engage in this sort of behavior.
Yeah, and I hate how they say a demonstrator pulled someone's hair. If you're pulling someone's hair, you're now an assailant. Right?
Absolutely.
Or you're running for Congress in Montana.
Was there hair pulling?
I'm sure we just couldn't
broke
hear
his
anything.
glasses.
I'm sure it was brutal.
That was not recorded.
He did say he broke his glasses. That's usually what happens when I pull someone's hair.
Eric, what do you think?
I think it's a story that we've done for the last 10 years, and we're going to continue to do it. And we'd hope, or I thought, with President Trump coming in and putting kind of a squash on the PC culture, it apparently thrives in academia.
But money talks. Money talks. If we withhold the federal funds of these universities that are, doing this kind of stuff, I think we'll see action.
All right, cool. All right. Straight ahead, we circle back with our specialists, Rachel Campos-Duffy and Rob O'Neill, right after this.
Time to circle back with our specialists, Rob O'Neill and Rachel Campos-Duffy. So, Rachel, we had a conversation one time, and I'd just gotten my puppy, and I was talking about how tired I was. And then you looked at me, and I realized that, know your audience, because you have 8 kids, so clearly you know a thing or two about being tired. How do you juggle it all with 8 kids?
So you know how much you love your puppy? Like, multiply it by 100, and then it makes it a lot easier.
I know, she loves that dog a lot. She really does.
I'm going to take my circle back in a little bit of a different direction. Rob O'Neill, tell us about double tap. Can you define what it is? Did you employ that tactic? And did that cockroach say anything to you?
No, there was
as he died?
There was nothing said. A double tap, the way we used it at our SEAL team, was 2 shots to the head. And the reason we did that was because we're dealing with suicide bombers. I've dealt with them before. I talk about it in my book, The Operator. It's very fast. It's very loud and permanent. If someone is a potential suicide bomber, you take him out in the head, and that's what happened.
And no sound came from him after that?
Nothing.
Bingo.
Yep. Rob, I want to talk to you about something we've talked about on the Gutfeld show already, where you get tweeted at by bin Laden's son.
We sort of did. It came from some of the Taliban guys, but they definitely had him in mind.
See,
I'm still looking for the handle for you.
It's like I feel bad. People tweet me mean things all day long, but normally they're like, you know, your arms are too skinny, you're annoying, but they're not like people from ISIS telling me that. So now I'm very grateful.
It's different troll. Shouldn't they learn their lesson to not mess with you?
Well,
I think you'd be the last person
I'm just saying, if he's
anyone should mess with.
They do switch their handle. Something did come out. I'm still trying to find out, but they're very crafty with the way they do the whole social media thing. But you're the first one that I will tweet when I get the.
Congratulations.
You're on the
I didn't know that they're just tweeting. That's just
Rob,
crazy.
don't tag me on it.
Yeah, I don't want to be involved in that. Sorry. All right. Well, thank you to our Fox News specialists here today, Rob O'Neill and Rachel Campos-Duffy. And thank you to everyone for letting me be here today in for Ebony Williams. And thank you to everyone for watching. Make sure to follow the show on social media at SpecialistFNC on Twitter and on Facebook. And remember, 5 o'clock will never be the same. Special Report is next.
NATO's new sheriff